there is exactly one DATAC game that I actually wanted, and it's Battle Rush. It has a distinctive premise, has some fun with its concepts, doesn't play as poorly as a lot of the other ones. It's not a fantastic game, but it's a creative one. There's just one tiny problem for me with it. Battle Rush is the single most expensive thing for the Famicom. I've seen copies in the past for under 1 million yen, but good luck finding them. Battle Rush is a game for the DATAC system, a hardware add-on that Bandai created which moves some common functions away from the cartridges and into the DATAC hardware. It also added a barcode reader because that's what Famicom players in 1993 were really clamoring for. DATAC games plug into the DATAC system, which is why they're not part of standard Famidaily. Battle Rush is unique among the DATAC games because it demonstrates the limitation of the DATAC hardware. The hardware chips that they moved to the platform weren't enough for Battle Rush, and so it has an additional memory chip in the cartridge. Battle Rush happens to be the only DATAC game not based on another property. This one's wholly original for Bandai, and maybe that's why it's a little better. Battle Rush has basically two different modes of play, though the gameplay winds up being the same for both. You can either go to the factory and create a robot that you will use to play through a series of fighting tournaments, or you can go to Versus Battle and scan a barcode in that will generate a robot from the various parts, and then use that in a battle. The combat itself is just okay, and building and developing your robot is the best part of the game, so I'd actually avoid the barcode bots for this one. The robots that you make are saved to the cartridge, but you can only save one robot at a time. When you go into the factory, you're asked if you really want to overwrite your robot, and then you have the opportunity to create your character. Your character doesn't actually matter. You get to enter name, gender, answer a few questions and it'll fill in a personality for you, and none of those have any effect on the game. But then you get to build your robot, and you build them from a set of default parts that are available to you. You always start with the feet, and then attach a body, arms, and head. All of these parts have to be supported appropriately. Strong legs can carry a strong body. A strong body can carry strong arms. There's a few key things to be aware of as you build the robot. The legs are the most important thing for the robot's movement. You could walk, have treads, or fly. And then for everything else, you're trying to build out your stats. The robot has 4 different stats: attack, defense, speed, and recover, which is how quickly the energy your robot uses builds up. Now if you build towards a deficit in one of these, it's not the end of the world. There's other things that you can get that will help. You also have to install weapons on your robot, and it only lets you have certain cheap ones to start with. 2 different short-range punch arms and 1 cannon arm. Once your robot's fully equipped, you'll get some bars that will show you their relative strengths, and these will always be at level 0. With a robot created, you can start a tournament. There are 3 tournaments that you'll have to clear in order to beat the game, and each tournament has you climb a ladder of competitors twice. And those tournaments are followed by final confrontations with boss robots that are outside of the tournament itself. Before every match in a tournament, you're given an opportunity to adjust your equipment as well as buy upgrades. There are 2 different kinds of upgrades you can purchase: stat upgrades and new hardware. Stat upgrades are straightforward. You pay some cash, that stat increases a level. It costs $100 for your first level, $200 for your second, and so on. It also extends the bar a little bit, but I'm not really sure that matters as much as the level. New equipment's a lot more complicated. You can buy new weapons for your robot, a shield that will let you reduce damage from some attacks, and additional hardware that you can equip to have various effects. You're given $500 to start with, and you really do need to spend all of your money to even stand a chance in winning a tournament. If you lose a tournament, then you get a small token pittance amount. $20 in the case of the first tournament. If you win the tournament, you get a bit more, $200 for the first tournament. This is actually a bit of a problem for Battle Rush because upgrade costs increase rapidly. You're basically forced to grind those early tournaments in order to have a shot of winning the later ones. In battle, A will fire your right arm, B will fire your left arm. You have energy that gets used up when you do things, and it comes back based on your recovery stat. All of your weapons use a certain amount of energy. As a rule of thumb, ranged weapons cost more. Having a shield will also rapidly deplete your energy, but as long as you have energy, it's greatly increasing your defense. While I was playing, I tried out 3 different robots. This one's a high-speed flyer who used a lot of extra optional equipment to boost the energy recovery rate and had a shield equipped. I did okay with it mainly by flying around to avoid the enemy, shooting them when they jumped up, and letting the timer run down. My most successful robot was this bruiser. Massive tank treads, massive body, heavy attack head. I only gave him punching arms, which had next to no energy cost. Then I spent my money on leveling up his attack and defense. He couldn't get around much, but when he connected he hit like a freight train. The only robots that even gave him trouble were high-speed ones with long-range attacks. And if he could get his hands on them, then they still got wrecked. The final build that I tried out was an average robot, but one where I purchased a much stronger ranged weapon for him. And again, this strategy seemed perfectly viable. Probably needed a few tweaks to build up his defense a bit more, but he could still pound people pretty badly. It genuinely felt like multiple versions of robot builds were all viable. As you might expect, in Japan, Battle Rush is known for only one thing, and that's the absurd price. And given how absurd that price is, it's really obvious that Battle Rush didn't sell any copies when it was originally released. I think Battle Rush is very flawed, but I still kinda like it. Just being able to build your own mechs and slam them together is kinda fun. The actual fights aren't anything to write home about, but they're also not so awful to play that you'd bounce off the game. It's a fine, kinda neat little obscure game that I wish wasn't tied to the day tack.